Welcome to Kalamazoo Lively Arts, the show that takes you inside Kalamazoo's vibrant creative community and explores the people who breathe life into the arts.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.
I'm John Koch here at the historic Kalamazoo State Theater. On today's episode, Jan Cruzy and Shelley Irwin go backstage with the multi-genre band the Red Sea Pedestrians. Learn the ancient art of papermaking at the Kalamazoo Book Arts Center. And get in sync with the spoken word duo Kinetic Affect. Now, the Red Sea Pedestrians.
The Red Sea Pedestrians call themselves a group that's made up of 5 distinct singers and songwriters. Although the makeup of the group has changed over the years, their sound hasn't. They say they're a one-of-a-kind musical group that blends traditional with wacky.
We're the Red Sea Pedestrians from right here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We've been around in different incarnations for about 10 years, and we specialize in combining different styles and influences from all over the world with our own roots here in Michigan, as well as a lot from right here in Kalamazoo and Michigan in general. There's a vibrant music scene going on around the state that influences us left and right. Every time we play a show and we're playing with another band or playing a festival or anything like that, there's always a cross-pollination going on. And that's one of the things that brings us all together is not really thinking about music by genre, but just thinking about it emotionally, by experience, by style or feeling or whatever. And to me, there's something really moving about that, about having an experience with art where something touches a part of me that I wasn't even aware of that existed, or something that had always been sitting there, but something I couldn't quite grasp. And a musician or a writer or a visual artist or whatever finds a way to hold a mirror up and show me something that I've always known but never quite seen clearly.
So Rachel, the clarinet that you play in Red Sea Pedestrians is not like a typical clarinet that you would hear in a band or an orchestra. Tell me a little bit about the style of this clarinet and you.
Well, the clarinet actually is a standard, almost professional level clarinet that any clarinetist would play. I was influenced greatly by big band jazz, actually, when I was in high school, and kind of incorporated a swing kind of style whenever I could. Later in life, I came to hear of klezmer and really appreciate that kind of style as well. So it's kind of those 3 influences, being classically trained, loving big band jazz, and the influence of klezmer as well, that have kind of combined into the style that I've made.
Something else that is really important to me about the Pedestrians is all of the people that have been in the band, even if they aren't now, and the way our sound has changed over the years. And if people look us up online or they check out our recordings, they're going to hear different musicians and different influences throughout the years. And to me, it's really interesting to be part of this thing that has evolved and changed and brought in different elements and is kind of flowing. We don't know where it's going to go from here, and that sort of thing. And to be part of something that's bigger than us, and I feel like the sound of the band is something that kind of transcends our own individual contributions and is more of this collective result of these influences.
And Corey, this is a violin, but is there a difference between a violin and a fiddle and the style that you're playing in the group?
There's not a physical difference between a violin and a fiddle. Fiddle, I think, is more of a style, the way you play it, you fiddle it. You know, it's more of a, fiddling comes from that old, like holding it in a more relaxed, you know, classical, you're all set up perfectly, and fiddling is more relaxed, and however your technique ends up being because you learned it from your grandpa or it was passed down.
And this, would you call this a mandolin?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And how does this different from a guitar or the bass, the other instrument that you play?
Well, there are a lot of similarities to any kind of fretted instrument that you play with a pick, whether it's guitar or mandolin or what. But this is, the tuning is actually just like the violin. These are really related instruments, and there's actually a whole family of mandolin instruments. The thing about the mandolin is you'll see there are 8 strings on it, but it's really only 4 notes. Every pair are identical strings, so these 2 strings are the same note, and that's made to give this more volume. So you play it like a 4-string instrument, even though it's got 8 strings on it. Keep it easy.
Are you self-taught on this, or?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I haven't studied formally, but I came to the mandolin through the folk tradition and bluegrass and roots music and all that, and learning by just playing with people and sitting around circles and trading songs and that sort of thing. So I don't consider myself self-taught, but it's been more of a informal training.
And are these, they're a little unique, wouldn't you say, as far as instruments? Not a lot of people play a mandolin.
Well, not in popular music as much, although some bands have really popularized it. REM are a band that's really known for incorporating mandolin, and Led Zeppelin as well. But it's more from the folk and bluegrass world. It's a very common instrument in that world.
Jan, what were they doing on stage with the band?
Well, I think the interesting thing with the Red Sea Pedestrians is they like to collaborate with other groups. And when you think of a group like this that is traditionally has played, you know, at their own venues and done their own music, when they had the opportunity to play with the Kalamazoo Concert Band, they thought, wow, this is really cool. Because you can imagine standing on stage and having 90 musicians in back of you, backing you up. So it was a great, you know, opportunity for them. And there were a lot of people who were in the Kalamazoo Concert Band's audience who had never heard of the Red Sea Pedestrians. So now they've increased their following because everybody liked what they did so much.
And I understand all the members of this group have unique day jobs.
That's what makes the group funny too, is because you have a nurse, you have a radio engineer, you have a librarian, a children's librarian who incorporates music into what he does with the children's programs at the Kalamazoo Public Library. We're going to hear about him and his program in an upcoming episode.
Thank you, Jan. Next, we head to the Park Trades Center to explore the power of handcrafted bookmaking.
My name is Jeff Abshire, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kalamazoo Book Arts Center. In the fall, it will be 10 years that we've been in operation here. We're a nonprofit organization that focuses on the traditional way of making books. So we have basically everything that has to do with bookmaking, from making handmade paper to letterpress printing, which is hand setting type and using a letterpress to print it. Any kind of image printmaking, like engravings, etchings, lithography, silkscreen, any kind of that kind of imagery we can do here. And then we also have a book bindery where we produce books. People ask me often, what is digital books going to do to the discipline of bookmaking? And I think digital books are great for all the different kinds of books and magazines that were just being made to be thrown away. But now that those are going on to e-readers and onto computers and whatnot, tablets, it kind of makes the actual traditional book more of a special thing. So what we're doing is making books that are works of art. They're handmade, they're done with traditional prints, they contain original writing in them. So each book becomes a very special object that's different than what you would buy in a regular bookstore that was made in a factory by a machine. I think my own feeling about it is that contemporary poetry and handmade books is kind of like a marriage made in heaven. Handmade books, which are so precious and done to be savored in their physical state, encourage people to slow down and read the poetry. So it isn't just a paperback book that you read quickly and then sort of toss. It's a book that you kind of savor a little more, and I think that makes it into a work of art. I think that our mission as educators is very important at the Book Arts Center. We have now many years of history working with little kids from the time that they are in first grade. And we now often during Art Hop, when we have art openings, have kids come in here who are in high school that say, I remember coming here and making a book. So we offer opportunities to children that I think are lasting, that they remember and that make an impression on them. So we are among many organizations here in town. I mean, Kalamazoo is a very special place in terms of all the art organizations that we have here. And I think that we are blessed with having local foundations that recognize the importance of the arts and education. So we're contributing to that by helping with not only teaching people how to make things with their hands, but the fact that part of our mission also involves literacy and reading and writing, and I think that also makes us special. Okay, so this is the kind of paper that we're going to make. This is all different kinds of colors of handmade paper that different people have made.
How do you get the colors?
The colors are different pigments that we add to the pulp when it's being made. It won't be like this today because we need to just make the sheet and then it'll take overnight to dry it.
Right. First steps include?
Okay, so let me show you. I'll do one and then you can try one. This vat is filled with water that has beaten cotton pulp in it. So the cotton is beaten using a machine called a beater, which we have in the back room, that grinds it down to very fine so that it will float in the water like this. And what we do is we take what this is called a mold and a decal. This creates the edge of the piece of paper that's formed on the mold. So I put the mold on top of the decal like this, and I stir up the vat of pulp.
Goodness.
You have to hold your hands out on the mold like this, not here, because you'll get holes in your piece of paper. And you just take this and dip it down into the vat like this until you get level at the bottom, and then pull it straight up.
And hold it.
And hold it, and let the water drain out.
How long are we holding for?
Until you don't hear any drips anymore, a minute or so, just until it stops dripping. And then you can balance it over here on the side so that you can take the decal off.
Oh my gosh.
And the decal can just go right back in the vat. Then I'm going to come over here to these, which are felts, and this is traditional paper making felts that pieces are formed on.
We're doing flip.
So you just line it up here along the bottom, and you flip it onto the felt. This is called, in the language of paper making, couching. You're couching the paper onto the felt. So you press the paper down onto the felt.
Water droplets are coming out.
And then you open it up slowly like this, like you're opening up a book, and you have formed a sheet of paper. I'm going to put, this looks a little thin to me because we had some interns here making paper. I'm going to add a little bit more of the pulp to the vat. So this is the pulp, so this is beaten up cotton, which I'll add a little bit more here so we make sure we got a thicker sheet. First thing to do is stir it up with your hands.
Stir it up both hands.
Yeah, just
make sure it's big and wide.
And make sure that everything is floating. And then line up the
Line
decal.
these two up as such, right?
And keep your fingers on the frame.
Side.
And then you kind of go straight down like that until you get all the way to the bottom.
So I'm picking these up.
And then you go straight
and
up.
straightening up.
That's
and I'm
right.
holding, good.
got it.
Okay, and letting it dry
And just
for,
letting it
how long do I know? How long do I know?
When you stop hearing the drips,
all right.
You should be okay.
Okay, now what?
And then you can balance it over here on the side. You can sort of on the edge over here.
Let it drip, okay.
And then you can take the top off. So you can
take the top off. This goes down in here?
And then go over here to
here to this.
Yay.
Yay. Now what?
And then back up just a little bit.
Back up here.
And then
flip it.
Flip it up and all the way over. Press on this on the
Press
outside.
on the outside,
and
right?
Open it up like you're opening up a book. So
like
hold
this.
that one side down and pull the other side up. Voila.
Voila! A little crinkly,
It's a little crinkly, but good for a first one.
That's a good thing.
And you can see on the finished sheet of paper once it's dried.
What's the chemistry that's causing this to bond?
Yes, let me explain. The little bits of fiber that are floating around in this vat are kind of like my fingers. They're sort of floating around in the water like this. Then when they come together onto the mold, they come together like this. And then, after this is formed, we put it in the press and put hydraulic pressure on it to squeeze all the water out. So it flattens all the fibers out. And then once they're flattened, now try to pull your hands apart. and it locks your hands together. And that's the same principle here. So that while right now this is like oatmeal and could easily be pulled apart, once we put this into the hydraulic press and it all gets squeezed together,
that really is
then it becomes a piece of paper and you can pick it up.
like a piece of paper.
Like a wet paper towel.
Shelley, what does it take to make a book?
That's what's happening. Books are being made. Not only does it take, obviously, the physical process of making the paper, but it takes what's in my heart. What is going to be represented from me, my passion, into this book that they say we all have in us. And a lot of these creations were books of poetry. You know, Jeff's created quite an animal here.
And he really cares about his students, providing extraordinary experiences for them.
Yep, I mean, just look at his resume, working with Western as a professor, and then opening up his studio such that those of all backgrounds can, quote, make books. And the big deal is he's all about international. He takes his students to the likes of Italy to share how their bookmaking process happens. So getting that hands-on mentorship is part of the process as well. So boy, if you want to get to know Jeff, do it quickly, because I'm sure he's booked up with many that are looking for his talent and his art. So
all right, thank you for that chapter in our show this week. Last week you learned about Speak It Forward. Now let's learn more about the artists behind the organization. Next up, Kinetic Affect.
Kinetic Affect is the two of us. It is essentially like our performing name that we go by, and we are a spoken word duo. And when we say spoken word, we mean we come from spoken word poetry as an art form, and we've learned to take that art form and turn it into an entertaining vehicle that involves both of our voices weaving in and out while telling important stories about our life experiences.
Well, we met competing to make the same poetry slam national team. So we come from a genre called poetry slam, which is a competitive form of spoken word poetry. They have national competitions for it. We met competing to make the same national team. We both made that team, and we ended up going to nationals to compete together for Kalamazoo.
I really don't know. The best way I can describe my childhood and me in general is perfection. No? Okay. Well, the reality of it is that when I was younger, grew up in Detroit, we were poor. I was overweight, and I was sensitive, and when you're poor, sensitive, and overweight, that's a triple whammy with kids in a grade school. So I got ripped apart on a daily basis. And not only that, I would be going home to a lot of violence, where I was experiencing a lot of abuse as a child. And so this led me down a pretty dark path, and I started realizing something when I hit junior high, that no one can talk crap to you when they're unconscious. So I started fighting back. And it really did work for a while. Pushed everyone away from me. I changed my image, changed my look, and I started to feel more accepted, even though I was more isolated than ever. And like Gabriel, I started selling drugs. This led me down a really dark path. When my senior year of high school, we became known as Suicide High by national news because 9 students in that school took their life that year. 5 of them were my friends, and this occurred within a period of only 3 months. And I remember they did autopsies and the bodies found one commonality. It was that all of them were high at the time they took their lives. And I was the one that was encouraging this. I was the one that had, I felt in many ways, pushed them down a path that ended their lives far too early. And so I made a decision right there and then really to change my life. And that's when I actually went to college, and I became a very successful college student, but only because of all the difficulties of my past did I know how badly I wanted a better future for myself. Except that the only thing I couldn't do was yet embrace that old part of me. I thought it was so horrible, so ugly, that I tried to bury it, tried to hide it away, but as you know, those things that you bury in there all eventually come to light at some point.
But he redirected that towards his students. I mean, he was a phenomenal teacher, without a doubt.
And I would tell my students, go write a poem about your life experiences and then go to this open mic and share your voice. And And they would all do it. I mean, they were super motivated by me. And then one day I had a student who was actually dying of cancer at the time, you know, pull me out on the chopping block in the middle of class. He said, you know, hey, Mr. Latimer, he says, you tell us to do this, but do you do it? He caught me, because the reality is that I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. And so then I wrote a poem in honor of him and performed it. And actually that was the poem that landed me into the position to be in the semifinal round, where I ended up meeting Gabriel.
We were focused on representing Kalamazoo as a team unit at Nationals. So I took the best piece, and when I say best piece, I mean the piece that I was most likely to get a high score on, and I offered it up to Kirk for us to perform it together because our dynamics are very different. Kirk is very loud and boisterous and brings this really high level of energy that's very difficult to match by other people. And I tend to be a little bit more introverted, a little bit more welcoming in the way that I present my style. So combined, it's this amazing kind of balance. And we performed the piece together and did extremely well at Nationals, but it eliminated our ability to be recognized as individuals so that we could receive individual accolades. But we were okay with that for some reason. We found that what happened when we joined our voices and our styles and our values together was much stronger at connecting than competing, which is why we left slam poetry just after a year. We wanted to focus our art form at finding ways to connect people with it rather than beat people with it.
I have not forgotten our original meaning, and our state has a warrior's name worth remembering. It comes from the Ojibwe, Michigama, meaning great water. And we believe that our ancestors knew something we've forgotten, a belief that you never give up on an underdog, that family comes first, and that home is where the heart is. We believe that we will never forget who we are. We believe that we will never forget what we're made of. And most importantly, we believe that we will never forget that Michigan deserves to be believed in.
So Shelley, one of the things that makes our work so dynamic is the fact that we are able to move in and out of sentences as individuals and then together. So today, I'm going to teach you how to perform the last few lines of our viral poem, the Michigan poem, with Kirk.
Okay.
So essentially, you're going to say this line, he's going to say that, and then you're going to say this together. So we're just going to go through it real quick, rough, with no practice.
I'm starting right here?
Yep. So you'll go, we believe, and then he'll follow.
We believe, and then we're going to say it together.
Together. All right.
Yep.
I can look at my cheat sheet.
Yes, you can.
Right. Before. We believe.
We believe.
We believe that we will never forget that Michigan deserves to be believed in.
Okay.
Oh,
so
my.
you can see how that can be a little bit difficult, right? Because if you're off, the audience is going to notice that.
They'd walk
So this is what
out.
I'm going to do. I'm going to have Kirk deliver the line. The last part right here.
Here it is.
We believe that we will never forget that Michigan deserves to be believed in.
Give it to her one more time.
We believe that we will never forget that Michigan deserves to be believed in.
Now you try it.
We believe that we will never forget that Michigan deserves to be believed in.
Much better. Now
Michigan deserves to be believed in. So Michigan deserves to be believed in.
Michigan deserves to be believed in.
How'd
I do?
So
How'd I do? Can I take your job?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We're going to see. Try it from there.
We believe
that we will never forget that Michigan deserves to be believed in.
See how much better that
You're
was?
a good teacher.
Yeah, so you have to really learn to listen to the other person and then try and match their tone. If we had more time, I would get you to match his tone so that it sounds like
you have to
one
pitch.
voice.
Yes.
So when we do it, we believe
that we will never forget that Michigan deserves to be believed in.
As it does.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Whoa.
Shelley, how did your perspective change after hearing their story?
Yep, what a story both had. First of all, I'm going into this learning about poetry. What is this spoken word? So what is my stereotype of a poet? It certainly was dispelled when I had the opportunity to work both with Gabe and Kirk. Their backgrounds, obviously from different lives, but look at what they come up with when they actually perform.
And you actually had the opportunity to perform with them. What was that experience like?
It was a great experience. Here are two gentlemen who have this passion, who have overcome both of their challenges, and yet are willing to work with the community, with a person like me, to share their talents. And it's all about rhythm and timing in the spoken word. Plus, it's a message. It's a message about whether it's about Michigan or changing your life. And so it was an opportunity to see what they have done, and I think they challenge us to be the best we can be.
Thank you for showing us that great form of artistic expression in Kalamazoo. And thank you for joining us tonight. Tune in next week as we follow up with a member of the Red Sea Pedestrians at the Kalamazoo Public Library, and see what's going on at Orff Music and the Gilmore Piano Camp in our musical education episode of Kalamazoo Lively Arts. From the Kalamazoo State Theater, I'm John Koch. Good night.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.
Today I want to live. I want to fall in love at first sight and feel that rush of embarrassment as I walk up to her, stumbling over my syllables just so I can tell her how beautiful she is. And I want to kiss the lips of some lovely lady who would leave me looking down on cloud nines like they were little cotton balls, and experience the sheer ecstasy of her waking up next to me so I could tell her just how much I worship the ground she floats on. Today I want to live. I want to stand barefoot on the ground and feel my feet sink deep into Mother Nature. She truly is mi madre, that makes me 1/4 Hispanic, 1/4 Cherokee, plus half Earth, which means we are all truly related. And I want to be around long enough to watch my whole family grow. So today I want to live.